Hey friends, Tuesday night, time for our Tuesday Worship Express. Welcome to the third week of January. If you are just joining us for this month, I'll kind of recap what we've dedicated January to be, which is a month for young people, a month for, the youth in our community, in this church, friends, your kids, your grandchildren, your friends. Just, we are all young at heart. So again, I'll say this is really for everyone. But I really want it to reach the young people, especially during this month of January. So I haven't really gotten to spend as much time with our youth group as I've wanted to the last several months. So I'm hoping that they can catch it here and there just sporadically. So today's January 18th, 2022, and it is the day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I like to reflect on him and his life and his legacy a little bit, and that's kind of where I want this conversation to go tonight. The last several weeks we've been talking about self-control, and what does that mean to have self-control, or who is in control when we're talking about it. And last week we talked about, in one corner you've got sin, and in the other corner you've got the Spirit of God. Who's going to win, right? You've got to constantly make an intentional effort when you're scrolling on your phone, when you're watching the news, when you're listening to gossip, when you've got all of this noise around you that does not allow you to connect with the Spirit of God. So, tonight I want to focus on Martin Luther King Jr. and the amount of self-control that man had to have to deliver a message and to share a message and to have a dream that he had is amazing and very inspirational to me. So, his dream of unity was for all young people. It was for the people that were coming up, the people that were in the world at the time, people today. His idea was that we would share it and pass it on and have it continue to grow and prosper. And, I think a lot of that I think we still have a way to go, or a ways to go, but we're definitely better than we were in 1963. So I want to share a little bit of what I researched last year about Martin Luther King Jr. The night before he was to deliver his "I Have a Dream" speech. He had a group of close friends. One of the people in that circle was the gospel singer that performed on the platform the night he gave his speech, the day he gave his speech. Her name was Mahalia Jackson. She was a part of his circle. She was an encourager. She was one of his inspirational people that he would turn to at a time of need. When he was feeling down or low, that was his person that he would reach out to and say, I need to hear from the Lord, and I know that you can give it to me through your music. Well, he was ready. His speech was ready to go. He got up on the platform to deliver a well-written speech, very thought out, very organized, I'm sure. And I don't know if Mahalia just took a look around and thought, some of these people aren't paying attention, but I know this man has something to say. And so she yells from the crowd, tell him about your dream, Martin. And he pushes his paper down, just kind of puts it to the side, takes a deep breath, and he starts sharing from his heart. I have a dream is how it started. And I don't know that he was really prepared to share that dream that day. But can you imagine if he hadn't, where we might be today? And when you think about the impact that those words still have on today and the people of today and the young people, it's impactful and it's important, and words matter. And so I have a few quotes that I want to share. One thing he said was, their destiny is tied to our destiny, meaning the white people's destiny is tied to the black people's destiny. We are all one. And in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, it says we are all created equal in God's image. That's what he's saying. We are all one. Showing respect to every person is showing respect to God. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, love is patient, love is kind. His quote is, I have decided to stick with love, for hate is too great a burden to bear. I agree with you. Another quote, I'm concerned about a better world. I'm concerned about justice. I'm concerned about brotherhood. I'm concerned about truth. When one is concerned about that, he can never advocate violence. When you read about Martin Luther King Jr. and self-control, if you were to ever Google those two things together, violence is one of the words that comes up, because to step away from the violence that was surrounding him was definitely rooted in self-control that he had. This man had a lot of self-control. The things that were probably said to him or done to him, he had a lot of faith. He had a lot of perseverance and a lot of hope, really, that his dream would come to fruition. So here's something else that I learned while researching him. Through violence, you may kill a murderer, but you can't kill murder itself. Through violence, you may murder a liar, but you can't establish truth. Darkness can't put out darkness. Only the light can do that. And that's who we are. We are called by God to be the light. That's our job at school, at work, at church, in the community, at the grocery store, at Disneyland, at the movies, wherever you spend your time, with your family. You are called to be the light. If there's darkness in a room, if there's turmoil, if there's toxicity, if there's stress, anxiety, we are called. God has placed peace in our hearts and has given us self-control, has given us love. We have all the tools. We just have to figure out how to navigate through some of this ugliness to get to the root of it. So that's who we are. We are the light. I have a little bit of scripture to share with you. In Psalms chapter 34, verse 14, it says, turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Peace. That is what Martin Luther King Jr., that was his dream, was peace. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 15. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. Justice. That is a word that is synonymous with Martin Luther King Jr. Justice and hope and faith and peace, right? And love. This conversation about MLK reminds me of the loss and the legacy of our own lives that we still deal with today. And I was reminded yesterday in my family that it is so important to talk about the people that have died in our families, in our lives, our loved ones, the people that we miss, the loss, the void, the abyss that is left with us when people are gone, and the legacy that they leave for us to cherish and to remember and to carry on. What do you want people to say about you one day? What is the message that you want people to remember about the life that you lived? And that's something that, in youth group, we've talked about this before. What would you want written about you in your obituary, or in if someone was sharing a speech about you or describing you to someone, what would you want them to say about you? So, this week will always be, the week that we're in right now, will forever be a very bittersweet week for my family. Lots of highs and lows that we will probably always feel. So I'm going to share that with you. And it starts with Martin Luther King Day. That's a good day. It's remembrance of him and who he was and what his dream was for all of us. It's also the week of my sister-in-law's birthday, who passed away also on this week. She had a birthday and then she died 2 days later, but her whole life was fighting for justice for other people who couldn't advocate for themselves. And then at the end of the week is my sweet daughter's birthday. She will be 17 at the end of this week. And so do you see the highs and lows, the roller coaster that will forever be a part of our lives with this week that we are in January? And so I was reminded yesterday of loss and legacy and tradition and things that are important. And it's one of those things that we will always talk about. Tamara and the life that she lived and the void that is left with her absence, and we will do something good that week. We will turn it into, instead of a grief-stricken week, we will turn it into a celebration. We will go to dinner. We will talk about her and who she was, just like we continue to talk about Martin Luther King Jr., just like we continue to talk about my dad or my husband's dad who died at a young age. These are things that everybody has experienced at some point in their lives, some sort of loss. Maybe it's not a death. Maybe it's the loss of a friend in a way that you didn't want to lose them. Maybe it's the loss of a job. Maybe it's the loss of something in your spirit. You know, there are many different things that we can grieve throughout our lives, but this week in particular for my family, it will always be bittersweet. Hopefully over the next several years, we will get to a point where it's not so sad, but it's more of just remembrance and conversation and celebration of a birthday for my daughter. We have talked about justice. We've talked about prosperity. And you know, we do love to take that day off from school. Everybody loves to take that Monday off, right? Or if you work at a bank or wherever you work, if you get that day off. But next year, or even this week, take some time to look back, read about Martin Luther King Jr. if you have a minute, to find out who he was, what he stood for. Why is he the only person in history who has a day named after him, but he's not a president? He did some really good things. And, you know, he brought a lot of people along. And I do want to end with this one last quote from him. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the staircase. Think about that. Think about faith. Taking that first step, even when you don't see the staircase, because that's what faith is. I love you guys. I hope that you have a great week. I will see you next Tuesday, and we will continue our conversation for the young people. And then in February, I'm hoping that Bo will join us again and bring him along and have some cool conversations. So see you next time.